Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And yesterday, Mike Sievert presented at the 49th annual JP Morgan conference. And once again, he gave his spiel on how confident that they are that they will remain the 5G leader and keep the leadership in speed, reliability, and largest 5G network. Each conference, I'm noticing by language, they're getting more and more confident, and they're using stronger terminology that they will remain the 5G leader throughout the entire 5G era. So he was asked several good questions, and he answered them very confidently as to why he thinks they will remain the 5G leader. So one thing that he touched up on is the first year out of the gates of C-band deployment, Verizon and AT&T will have 100 megahertz combined. That's a 60-40 split. So Verizon will have 60 megahertz of C-band on air, and AT&T will be able to deploy 40 megahertz of C-band on air. He's referencing 100 megahertz for T-Mobile by the end of 2021 alone. They don't have to split it. It's 100 megahertz. And then the time frame he referenced by the end of 2023 is 200 megahertz. So again, very aggressive. He didn't go more into detail on how they achieved that. Is it 100 megahertz of N41? Is the 200 megahertz N41 and C-band? We don't know. He didn't go more into detail on that. But I'm thinking if they have issues with license fragmentation, then I think they are going to lease the licensing to get to that total. That's just a guess of mine, because that's an issue in a lot of counties. But I think they achieved that. If they want to maintain the leadership and they want to have the spectrum lead that they've been obtaining, then I think they need to work those licenses and get that leasing going so they can get that spectrum contiguous. And that fragmentation has been quite a problem over the last few months. It's been discussed quite a bit. And if that can be fixed, then they'll have contiguous licensing across the board. And I think when he says 100 megahertz to end of 21, 200 to end of 23, I think that's what it means. They go after the contiguous licensing of the 2.5 spectrum that they acquired from Sprint. So then he goes on to say a part of the category that they're targeting is rural America, which is what they're calling license to win. So they're very aggressively going after market share in rural America. So I think what that means is the business has an understanding that the consumer in the suburban and urban is starting to mature. Will T-Mobile continue growing there? Yes. But in places like El Paso, Los Angeles, some of the boroughs of New York City, where T-Mobile has been able to obtain 40, 50% of the share, and now maybe even a little more because of the Sprint share that they've gained by closing the merger, it's likely getting very mature. They can't no longer pull from the Sprint base because it's now theirs. All they can really do with the Sprint base is try to lower the churn, which is what they're doing. So they can only pull either from the cable companies, which now they're included in the run rate. So that means T-Mobile did not anticipate them competing as well as they are. That's pretty much what they're alluding to in that statement. So they did not anticipate the cable cos to compete in the MVNO space as aggressively as they are. They're gaining very quickly, so T-Mobile has that as part of the run rate. But they feel with the networking that they're doing now, obtaining that leadership and having the most capacitive network and value, they'll be able to gain some of those customers back if they did leave T-Mobile or Sprint. Somewhere down the line, they'll be able to attract that customer back. But Other than that, they feel the market is maturing in these environments. So the next markets for them to attack naturally are the markets that present upside, and they feel that presents a bigger, better value to their investors, which is rural. They're in the low teens now. They anticipate on a low conservative number to get to 20%. Part of the licenses to win in that space are the 10,000 new sites that they're building. So is that 10,000 necessarily a set number? Probably not. That could likely go to 11, 12,000, depending on how the business evolves over the next several years. If they see an explosion of growth on home internet, which is what they're anticipating, there's more money there for sites. So they can easily raise CapEx, a billion or two, and dedicate that for additional site builds. So there's no set number for anything. I know they've given a guidance towards that, but I think if the business changes, and everything changes in time, nothing stays the same, T-Mobile will adapt. But one thing that they did mention, the way their business is currently structured, they feel that Verizon and AT&T are trying to structure their businesses now to mimic their model. So a prime example, Mike Sievert says, is the pure wireless play. They feel that they've been a pure wireless mobile company for many years now. They've really never gotten into media or purchased any big media assets. He didn't reference T-Vision, but I will. So that's something that they tried to do as a solution. It failed once they noticed, hey, this is how much it's going to cost to keep the software up to date, to keep these partners on board with the channels. They were already having issues with that. So they kind of cut their ties on layer 3 TV. Did they necessarily buy huge media assets with that? No, they really didn't. Like what AT&T did with purchasing that $85 billion acquisition in Time Warner, and then Verizon going after AOL and Yahoo under McDowell. So that's something that T-Mobile didn't do. So they kind of drifted off a little bit into media, very little, but they immediately cut it off. So they didn't let it get out of hand. But now he's referencing that AT&T and Verizon are trying to mimic their model, such as the Netflix on Us. He mentioned that they were the pioneers in doing those kind of partnerships, and now he's referencing that his competition is trying to mimic their plans. Pure wireless partnerships. The internet is going mobile. That's kind of what he was referencing T-Mobile is going for. And then he also mentioned that they also have some more offerings and such in the future in that space. So we could potentially see some additional value play coming from T-Mobile. It just depends on how flexible they want to become. They want to compete. They want to remain value. They want to remain the value player and still offer a great network. So that's something that we'll see in the future how that develops. But that's just something that he was discussing during this conference. Now, one thing that I want to say is to kind of what he's referencing, best value network. He wants to maintain a balance of both. So I'm going to go ahead and say, and I've heard this several times already, T-Mobile is the best network for the price. So if you can get a great deal on T-Mobile, and that includes free lines, and then you still get the in-flight Wi-Fi, and you get $10 off of YouTube TV and the Netflix on Us, and those partnerships, then T-Mobile does become the best network for the pricing. Is it necessarily the best network yet? No. And he did kind of reference that a little in this conference. He was asked, can you guys compete more aggressively in rural today with a network and the value play? And he says, we're not quite there yet in terms of, is the network, expanded enough? Can we cover the whole entire rural footprint? And he was honest, at least, and I do like that he was honest about it, because they have to continue building. And those 10,000 sites are going to help tremendously get them there. What that essentially looks like, I don't know yet. Is that a dense network, the 10,000 sites? Will that be more spaced out? Are they going to push sites? I think the engineers and the teams are going to, of course, internally come up with planning on how to properly lay out that plan and then execute it. But I think in areas in smaller towns where there is maybe more of a demand for the home internet, they build a little more density for it. But if there's long highway stretches or where there's a long stretch of a bunch of trees and in a small rural road, I think you can just put up one site and kind of push it out a little further instead of having to build a site every so often. But that'll be up to T-Mobile. That'll be up to them how to put that network modeling together and build out those 10,000 sites into these rural areas. So then he goes on to reference C-band, that it will be strategically deployed in the urban environment where they have the densification assets. Then he goes on to reference the Sprint keep sites, that they can very adequately and quickly deploy densification where needed. So he doesn't have to wait, and I mentioned this in the previous video, he doesn't have to wait for additional permits. He doesn't have to wait for authorization from landlords to build new sites. These sites, these Sprint keep sites, are already existing. So they just have to literally file, if a permit is even needed, they have to file for access to upgrade the site. He just has to get approval. Hey, this is what's being added. I want to upgrade. And they have now, per the FCC, most municipalities have about 60 days to approve that. That's it, 60 days. And most do it within a month. And then boom, there it goes. And then it's up to the contractor, the equipment, when it's available, to go to the site and upgrade it. It'll be very, very quickly. He wants this done. He said it very clearly. He wants this done next year. The Sprint keep sites, he wants it finished next year, and he wants the Sprint base 100% migrated to the TNX experience, T-Mobile network experience, by next year. He's very aggressive on that. He didn't really get too aggressive about it on this call. Of course, it's a public appearance, so he's not going to be as crazy. But internally, I'm hearing he's the complete opposite. He's telling his team, we need to get this done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. These guys need to be migrated onto the T-Mobile network experience, because he says he has a great point. The net promoter scores are doubling for customers that are moving over to the T-Mobile network. I know that may vary on the use to use case, market per market, because some people may have a worse experience, but that percentage is very, very low. Remember, T-Mobile had a much larger network versus Sprint. So the percentage of time where a Sprint user may have a worse experience than on the T-Mobile network is probably slim to none, if we're looking at it on a nationwide basis. So to achieve that goal, to get to 100% by next year, I think it's reasonable, especially if these net promoter scores are doubling. And he says the Sprint churn is even getting, just a notch lower by moving them to T-Mobile. So they see huge benefit from that. So of course they're going to try to accelerate this to new levels. So that's briefly what he covered. It was about 35 minutes. So I just wanted to share like a summary. Nothing else really that he said that we didn't already know. Magenta Max is working. It's the only unlimited plan, truly unlimited plan out there. That he did reference that it's an ARPU play for them. People are generally get it. They go up in ARPU overall. He says he's confident on home internet. Says it's working. He didn't give any numbers. He said he couldn't go into specifics due to competition reasons. He said the same about rural. He couldn't really give additional info on that, but I'm sure we'll hear about it soon. Every time they go somewhere or they go to the toilet, they let you know about it. Trust me. So soon, at maybe the next earnings call, or maybe even before that at another conference, if they feel confident enough, they might give us some hints and some numbers as to how the business is doing. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Look forward to reading your comments. If you have been on the channel or you are new to the channel and you have not yet liked, shared, subscribed, make sure you do so. Hit the notification bell so you are notified when I do upload content. Make sure to follow the social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.